Well, welcome everybody to today's webinar, How to Design a Killer Website. My name is Matt Baird. I'm the founder of Q4 Launch. Appreciate those of you who are along for the ride with us today. I know we've got a lot of new faces with us, so I want to go over a few things, a little bit about who we are, but also a little bit of housekeeping for our webinar today. If you've been with us before, welcome back. We're glad that you are along for the ride again. And again, if you're here for the first time, welcome. Glad you're here with us. A little bit about Q4 Launch. We are a destination marketing company working primarily with bed and breakfast, inns, vacation rentals, luxury hotels, resorts throughout the world. And today we're excited to introduce to you, we're going to kind of use a case study of one of our international customers that's with us. So we're excited for that, excited that we're going to share this case study with you a little bit today about this website we recently launched. So that's a little bit about us. We do marketing, we do web design. Y'all don't necessarily care so much about what we do, but more about diving in on how to design a killer website. So we're going to jump into that. A little bit of housekeeping. The presentation, the video, the slides will all be available. We will send that out to everyone who registered today afterwards. So keep an eye out on your inbox for that. Probably be coming out first of next week. We'll get you a copy of that. It will also be posted to our YouTube channel. So if you absolutely can't wait for the notification in your inbox, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Q4Launch, and you'll be the first to know when that's live on our YouTube channel. We also are going to have some time for questions and answers at the end of our time together. So if you have questions, we'll be using the chat panel to manage those today. So throughout our time together, feel free to populate the chat panel with those, and we will be sure to circle back around to those questions at the end of our time together. The title is a little different, so let me touch base on that. When we started this, when I was going out and using this case study, I'm going to tie this in, we were looking for those 5 tips, and honestly, I just kept coming up with more and more tips, and as we kind of molded over as a team and started cutting some of those down that were as important, we kind of ended up with some we didn't really want to cut out. So we may have a few more than 5 for you today, but we think the content is really good and really going to be helpful for you as you're marketing your properties, and possibly you're in that redesign phase right now and you're trying to think about that. We'll give you some great things to think about as we look through the tips we have for you, but also some real life examples of that. So I'm really excited for our time together to kind of dive into this and share some thoughts, share some of the things that we're seeing working. So with that, we will go ahead and just jump in and get started here. So the first thing I wanted to do was kind of get this screenshot up here and introduce you to our Finesse Collection. Our Finesse Collection is a group of luxury hotels all around the world. They're headquartered out of Singapore, and we were excited back in January, February, they approached us about developing a partnership together and launching this new brand for them. They're part of a larger brand called Country Holidays that does business in Hong Kong, China, Singapore, and Dubai. So they're doing business all over the world. They represent properties all over the world. We're really excited about the opportunity to partner with them on this website. The website has recently gone live, so we're excited to see some of the results coming in, some of the initial marketing traction that it's getting, but also see the way the site's functioning, people are interacting with it, and seeing just the incredible photography that we're showcasing throughout the site. So we're going to jump to some visuals. I did my best to capture screenshots, as it's hard to go back and forth to a live website. So we're going to be looking at a lot of screenshots today, but you can also check them out on your own time at ourfinessecollection.com, or if you're a 2-browser user, or you're a 2 desktop monitor user, you can kind of have those up on 2 monitors as well and track along with us. So the white borders you're going to see on some of these screenshots, those aren't there in real life. Those are part of the Prezi software. So the images go to the edges of the screen, some of those types of things. So as you're looking at that, just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of information about that, what we're looking at, so you can kind of see how it all ties together. So excited to introduce you to them. And with that, we're going to dive into our first tip. And this is something that a lot of people get caught up on, and we're absolutely on board with it being important. But it's the tip that's all about the sexy factor. And a lot of just design firms really want to sell you on this idea that it's all about the sexy factor. And I talked to you a little bit at the beginning about who we are and what we do, and that we look at things from a design perspective and that sexy factor, right? I mean, that image that I just had on the screen definitely has that sexy factor. Who doesn't want to be there right now? Sign me up. I'm ready to go. I should be leading this webinar right there from that table and then retiring to my coconut drink on the on the Chase Lounger there. But it is important, but it's not everything, right? So you've got to bring together this design, aesthetic, with user functionality and marketing. And when you're starting a website design process, I'd really encourage people to partner with somebody who gets the marketing aspect of it, because if all you're thinking about is design and pixels and placement and this and that, you're going to lose sight of, well, how is the user actually going to use this website? How is my customer actually going to use this website? What are they looking for? What do they need through the different stages of the traveler journey, the process we've talked about on past webinars, the dreaming, planning, dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. But really thinking through your website from a bigger picture of how the user is going to use it, what information are they looking for, how are we going to use our marketing strategy to reach them, how's that interface with the website, and then last but not least, definitely not least, then bring in the sexy factor to kind of layer on top of that. So within that, there are definitely some tips. Large, high-impact imagery is key. Just a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, with some of the photography partners that we work with and love in the industries we work in, we published a blog on our website about high-impact imagery and the use of photography and the role that plays. So if you're looking for that, check it out, q4launch.com/blog. You'll find that a few down. But it's absolutely important. When we flip back over and look at this, that image makes a statement. That's one of 8 images that rotate through what's called a hero slider on the home page, but it makes a statement. Right away, that image draws me in and it kind of catapults me to this place where I want to be there, and I want to find out where that is and how do I get there, which is what it's all about for the Finesse Collection, is helping you get there, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. The second is to make sure you're showcasing your property. If you're an individual hotel, inn, bed and breakfast, this is easier for you than it is for some of the larger, more complex organizations. You've got one property typically, and in your case, you're really showcasing your rooms, but also what makes your property special. Do you have a pool? Well, you need to be showcasing that. Do you have a beautiful garden courtyard where people can have some quiet time or do yoga in the morning or whatever? Showcase those things that make your property unique. Is food what makes your property unique? Showcase that. But you've got to be using your imagery and your homepage and your website to showcase what makes it really, really special. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in that special aspect of what makes your place so special and kind of just get caught in the day-to-day a bit. But pull back a little bit and say, what is really unique about my place? And showcase that right off the bat with your website. Use that as an opportunity to capture people's attention. And then that third one, I touched on this really at the beginning, but don't sacrifice function for form. Don't be so caught up in the sexy factor and lose sight of how someone's actually going to use your website. Because a lot of times people design these beautiful websites, but in doing so and trying to make everything super unique, it actually makes it harder on the user. Within that Finesse Collection project, there was some really cool functionality we were looking at from the way menus are displayed and lots of other things that's pretty cutting edge. But at the end of the day, when we user tested it, we kind of had to pull back a little bit and say, yeah, that's got an awesome wow factor, awesome sexy factor, but let's think about our customer. Is our customer going to benefit from that, or is it going to be a hindrance? Is it going to frustrate them, or is it going to make their life better? And even though it's really cool and we get excited about it as designers and marketers, sometimes you got to pull back a little bit and say, you know, that form, that sexy factor is going to get in the way of our users using it. What's that mobile experience like? We're going to talk about that later on, but making sure you're thinking about that. Designing for mobile right out of the box, really important thing to be thinking about as well. So we're pulling that back on the website. You'll see some things we're going to dive into some of the details, but that high impact imagery, very simple user interface right off the bat, and this is just a screenshot of the top of the page. Of course, the page goes on, and there's more, much more below this, which you would see if you were live on the site. But it's really drawing you in right off of the bat. Let's dive in a little bit more to the role of the homepage as well. We think that the homepage is kind of misconstrued because everybody thinks that users are entering your website on the homepage, right? And that's the intent of a homepage. And years ago in web design, we designed the homepage to be the end-all, be-all, and it's very important. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not, but as content marketing has evolved and the way users are using websites and the way marketers are designing websites, people are entering your website in all sorts of other areas, whether that's they're finding your content marketing strategy you're using and they're finding your blog as a result of that, or they're on your email marketing campaign. Your email marketing campaign is directing them deeper into your website. You've really got to think about your homepage. What role does it play? Sometimes we talk about the homepage as the traffic cop. He's standing out there in traffic, and he's just going all over the place, making sure traffic is flowing where it needs to go. He's trying to figure out, trying to read your signals a little bit, understand, are you going right, are you going left, are you trying to go straight, what's going on? And your homepage really needs to serve that role as well. It needs to kind of surface the key important elements that someone might be looking for on your website, and then navigate them to that place quickly. We don't want people spending a lot of time on your homepage, right? It's not necessarily intended for that. We want it to showcase what your property, what you have to offer, your amenities, what's special about you, and then get people deeper into your website as quickly as possible so they can learn more information there. And as a part of that, we always recommend, and one of the ways we start a lot of website projects is tracking website entrances in Google Analytics and focusing our design time on those paths. So within Google Analytics, we can see where people are entering a website, track that, and then track the path that they take as they move through the website. And this helps us a lot because it helps us understand, as we're investing design time and ultimately our customers' money into designing a killer website, where should we be focusing that effort? If your blog is only getting 3% of your overall site traffic, maybe a blog's not as important to you. Maybe you shouldn't be spending a lot of time and money investing in a great blog design. But if you have a really active content marketing strategy that centers around your blog, and 33% or 50% of all people who come to your website at some point touch your blog, that's a definite indicator we need to be spending more time designing that. We have one of our customers that we did a website 3 years ago for, and we were talking to him about doing a redesign, and I told him, I said, hey, Michael, when we look at your website traffic, your mobile traffic specifically has gone from 10% to 65% in 3 years. Now, a lot of that is the way we've approached their marketing strategy, but what that told us was, as we were approaching this redesign, was that 65% of our traffic is on a mobile device. We need to be designing mobile first and allocating budget to that because that's the majority of our traffic. Usually people do that as an afterthought, and in today's marketing era, in today's user interface era, we have to be looking at that and saying, okay, what does the mobile side of it look like? And that is, a lot of that information is coming to us because we're tracking that website interest through Google Analytics and understanding where they're coming in and where they're going once they get there. So I really kind of want to flip that idea of your homepage on the head a little bit and say, maybe an action step for you after today's webinar would be to dive into your analytics and actually look at that and say, okay, well, where are people entering my website? I always assumed they were coming to the homepage, and a majority of them probably are, but I bet you there's some people entering it in other places. Or if you find out no one's entering it anywhere but the homepage, that means you've probably got some shortcomings in your marketing strategy, and that would lead you to kind of dive down that road a little bit. So a great action step for you to take as you're kind of trying to apply what we're learning today. As we dive in here to the homepage of the Finesse Collection, this is what we call like real-time analytics, and we'll pull this up with a new site we launched, but it helps us reorganize menu. And some of these percentages are a little small, so I see that they're kind of hard to read there. But what we're doing there is once we launch a site, or if we're taking over management of an existing site that has traffic, has history, what we're doing is we're monitoring the pages that customers are going to, and then we're reorganizing our navigation menu, but also our homepage hierarchy based on what's most important to our customers. And understanding the types of information your customer is looking for is a really important part of that overall design of this homepage. Also, the order of your navigation menu and the order of the homepage that things are appearing. It can also help you understand what's going well in your marketing. You're marketing certain areas of the homepage, certain areas of your website, and understanding, is that going well or is it not? But also maybe where in your focus do you need to put more marketing focus because people aren't getting to certain pages of your website as a high of a percentage. So as we look at that, it leads us to this conversation of planning your navigation menu carefully. Your navigation menu are the road signs for people who are coming into your site, and it needs to be really easy to use. A lot of times people want to just blow out navigation menus and put tons and tons of stuff in there, just pack it all in. And when we hear people having that conversation, we often kind of guide them back to Apple as a design standard. I mean, you think about how many products and services and stores and everything else Apple has going on, but when you go to their webpage, it's a really simple navigation menu. They've really simplified it. They've boiled it down to understand what people are looking for and help them get there as quickly as possible. So as you're doing this, Google Analytics, again, is a great way to help plan your navigation menu. If you're thinking about a website redesign, I wouldn't even start the process without understanding what pages are people going to on my website most. Put those in order as far as getting the most traffic, and then plan your navigation, plan your homepage around those things, understanding what's important to people. In our experience with the probably 100 hospitality websites we've designed at this point, rooms and properties are going to be the highest clicked pages, right? That's kind of a no-brainer. So for a hotel, a vacation rental company, a B&B, you want to have rooms, accommodations, properties, search as that first thing in the left column. Some people have home there, some don't. If you don't have home, then this should be your first thing. It's going to get the highest amount of clicks, and that should also be what you're focusing on first and foremost on your homepage. And most people get that. We see that 95% of the time. But if you're planning it, start there. The second thing that's going to get your highest click pages is specials or packages. Any deals you have, and everybody phrases it a little differently. When we say specials and packages, it's not all about discounting. That's not what we're talking about. Some people do, and that's important to make sure you're highlighting if that's a part of your business model. But if it's not, specials and packages are usually going to be the second highest click page on your website. And then the next thing there is make sure Contact Us is easy to find. It doesn't need to be like flashing with big neon lights. If people want to contact you, they will look for Contact Us, but when they look for it, they need to find it easily. You'll see if we flip back here, Contact Us isn't a part of our main nav. It's in the tertiary or the secondary nav right above the Inquire Now button. But you'll notice visually we've lined up Contact Us and Inquire Now right there with each other. And it's in a place that the user knows to look for it. And it's a global thing as well, meaning it's on every page on the website. The next thing there is using second-tier navigation for less important items. That's an important thing because it allows you, if you are going to have more items in your navigation menu, to kind of put them in a secondary role or to give them kind of a less important role so we don't distract the user with something that's less important. You know, it's pretty obvious, but using that second-tier navigation can be very valuable depending on how well it's done. It can clutter up a design. When we were working through this Finesse Collection design, we played a lot with this. Do we do a one-tier or a two-tier navigation? And when we had the search element, when we had these the sign in, the Contact Us, we decided we really want those to kind of come along with us. So we're going to do this two-tier, but we don't want it to be really distracting and clutter it up, which is why we kind of did that semi-transparency on it so you can still see the image through it. So really cool different ways to play with that. But I'll tell you, we probably spent between 5 and 10 hours as a leadership team, myself, our senior designer, and our junior designer on the team, all kind of bringing different ideas to the table. And we probably had 10 different concepts for that navigation menu before we settled on that one. So there's a lot that goes into that. You may think, oh, my designer just threw that together. But a good one is really going to be spending a lot of time diving into that, understanding it. The next thing we're going to talk about, and it's really hard to show because it's a live thing, but if you go to the live site, you'll see it on a lot of live sites now. And it's not one of our official tips here, but is using sticky navigation. I think we might mention it later on, but using sticky navigation basically means, and you'll see it kind of in the design of everything else that we're doing later on, but using sticky navigation basically sticks that menu to the top. So if we back up here, you'll see that our navigation menu is not at the top by default. There's actually photo all the way to the top of the screen if you had Google Analytics turned off. Let me go back to one here, and you'll actually see what that looks like when you come in without Google Analytics. There you go. But when sticky navigation, when you scroll down the page, this black bar is going to stick to the top of the page. So it's really easy for users to still find your navigation. They don't have to scroll all the way back to the top of the page. In an era where people scroll because of the Facebook news feed has really trained people to keep scrolling, it's really helpful to have that sticky navigation so it's always there for them. It's easy to find. But that's a great tip to use as you're kind of trying to work through how are people going to interact with and use the website. All right, let's bounce back here to our tips. Keep moving along. So here's just an example as well of using a good drop-down, right? So planning that navigation and then using a pretty clean and simple drop-down. Lots of cool ways to do drop-down. We've seen some, and we've actually designed some that have images built into the drop-down. That can be cool. We've seen some that are just ginormous, called like billboard drop-downs. You got a ton of content, but making sure that you're organizing your drop-downs effectively. And in this case, we've used those arrows to signify, hey, there's information down here. So to tell the user to go here to find more information about this. So just a little design touch to kind of help our users navigate through the site. A little bit more about planning your navigation. Using footer for social media icons is also an important idea. A lot of people want those to go in the header, but what we tell customers is, social media is its own animal, and it's great, and people want to go out there to check you out and make sure you're credible and legit. But we don't want to work so hard in our marketing strategy to get people to the website and then lead off on our homepage or interior pages with these huge social media icons that then throw people back out in the marketing ocean, throw the fish back out in the ocean and say, hey, go back out to social media, get distracted by everything going on there, and don't come back to our website. So a user is typically going to look for social media icons in the header or in the footer. And knowing if it's in the header, they might just bounce out there right away and get distracted. Most times we're going to put them in the footer, and there's that important reason behind that. Number 6, we talked about in depth quite a bit, so I'm going to kind of skip past that one. But number 7 is really important. I touched on this earlier, but as content marketing increases, your blog's going to increasingly become a landing page. And when I say landing page, what I'm talking about is that people are going to enter the website through your blog. So definitely be thinking about that as you're using your blog strategy. We're going to dive into this a little bit here in just a minute. But think about your blog as a part of your website. And if that's the first thing somebody sees on your website, how does it represent your business? How does it represent your property or your hotel? Or how does it pull people in, get them engaged, and get them into other parts of the website? Does it serve that purpose, or was it an afterthought for your web designer when it was published? Or was it launched afterwards and nobody ever put any design time into it? It's a really important thing to think about if you're going to become a part of the content marketing generation, which is really important as we're talking about reaching millennials and some of those things, because they're looking for places that will help them have an experience, not just a place to put their head at night. And content marketing and your blog gives you a way to help create that experience, tell that story, and draw people into your property. So that leads us right into this conversation about making sure that your blog is integrated into your website. And I'm going to look at the visual of how Finesse Collection has integrated the blog into their website. But when we look at the blog's role, I just talked about this quite a bit, but it should be delivering 10 to 20% of your overall traffic. When I say delivering, that means bringing to, correct? I mean, that's not saying that 10 to 20% of people on your website go to your blog. It means the blog is responsible as an entry point for 10 to 20% of your overall traffic. And that really ties more into thinking about your website and your blog from a marketing perspective than just a design perspective. But it leads us to say, okay, if it's bringing in 10 to 20% of our overall traffic, it's realistic to think it should be 10 to 20% of our overall website budget should be spent in that area. So it's just an important way to be thinking about that. As you're designing a blog and you're thinking about people entering your website there, using a great sidebar with well-designed calls to action is going to help you take that user who enters the blog or enters your website on the blog and get them into other parts of your website, using those calls to action to do that. And then last but definitely not least, if you're redesigning a website or you have a website that hasn't been done for, absolutely spend time and budget custom designing your blog index and blog post themes. Essentially what that means is a lot of content management systems like WordPress just have inherent styling for a blog out of the gate. And it's okay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's probably closer to bad than great. But you've got to spend some time custom designing those to make sure it matches the overall design and theme of your website. We're going to show you how our Finesse Collection did that. But this is something we see done poorly time and time again. Even people who are launching new websites. Web designers who don't understand marketing are just not putting time and energy into blog design. And that kind of tells you that they don't get content marketing, they don't get big picture marketing, which is okay. They may still be a great designer, but then it's your responsibility as your own project manager to say, no, this is important, and this is how I want this to look. And we're going to give you some examples here of some ways to make that look. This is the blog index for our Finesse Collection. If you go to the blog now, it looks a little different because the actual stories that are up there are a little bit different. But this was the mock-up that we put out to them, and it's just a whole new way to think about blog design. Usually, and we've done this in the past, people will have a long post, like they'll just show you their entire first post, and you go to the blog index, and it's basically just text, and that turns you off. Or the next step up from that, and this is what we've been doing for years, is to have a photo and then a blog snippet. So it's maybe one paragraph in the headline, and that's great. That's really that's absolutely valid. That's a good way to be. But this is where we think blog design is going in the future, and that's why with the budget we had for this project, we were able to really blow this out and make it pretty cool. But it's very photo-based from a blog design. And it was saying what's going to draw our user in, and knowing where things are going from a social media perspective. Not that they're going here, they already are here, but it's all about the images, right? I mean, I talked about that image on that homepage, that beach scene that really drew you in, drew me in, and made me want to go sit by that pool and drink that coconut drink. But it's these images, along with the headline of what I can expect to find, that's going to draw me in and make me want to learn more. I want to know where that city is, where that Chinese pagoda is. I've got to figure out what city is that in, and then it starts the process of discovering that city, discovering that experience, and planning that trip to that destination. You know, maybe an African safari is on the top of my list, and that picture of the cheetahs just draws me in right away. And I'm like, oh, I got to go check that out. I love cheetahs. My wife loves cheetahs, whatever. And I want to go check that out. I want to learn about that. I want to learn about that African adventure. Or maybe it's, you know, the longboats down in Thailand that draws you in, that picture there to the left, that really kind of speaks to you and draws you into that more beachy, warm destination. So lots of different ways to kind of look at that, but absolutely spending time on that blog design is going to pay back in dividends for you as far as people interacting with, engaging on, and staying on your website, and ultimately becoming customers. And then this is the next one. This is a blog post. So I said focus on two things. One is the blog index and one is the blog post. You'll notice a couple things here. One, we've used a really big full-width hero image at the top of this. So it's the same image that came through from the blog index. So it's right there right off the bat for you to check it out and see it. We've also got our navigation menu at the top that matches the design of the rest of our website, right? It doesn't feel like we've left the website and gone somewhere else. It's all the same site, all the same look and feel, all the same branding. And then we've got our content area below that, and importantly, out to the right, we have our calls to action. And this is a really important piece, and it's something most people don't think about, but using a sidebar like this to be able to put calls to action in so that you can make sure that you're getting the information. That information out in front of people is going to help them to move into different parts of the website. So if someone comes in, if they Google 5 Chinese cities you have to visit, and they happen to land on this website, and this is their first experience with our Finesse Collection, they have no idea who they are, they have no idea what the brand is. This sidebar and these calls to action is going to help them capture their attention and move them into different places on their website. Additionally, the navigation menu is the same as it is throughout the rest of the website. So we have the navigation menu at the top there, so people can quickly and easily see other places to go on the website with that sidebar. So those two things together really help people move through the rest of the website. And not so much a design thing, but more of a writing thing. When you're writing your blog post, being able to use internal linking and actually linking to other pages on your website will also help users move deeper into other parts of your website. So right within the content, linking images or linking text to other parts of your website will help you get people moving throughout your website. And you can really track how well this is performing, again, within Google Analytics to understand what's working and what's not. All right, the next thing we're going to touch on is ease of website management is absolutely key. Not managing your website on a regular basis, meaning you're updating it, should be weekly, but at least monthly, is one of the biggest failures we see from most marketing organizations. And you are a marketing organization. At the end of the day, you're marketing your property to go find customers. But most people do not do this effectively, and they don't do it frequently enough. You've absolutely got to keep your website up to date and taking care of it. But a recent study by HubSpot, and their kind of survey of the market to understand what people are struggling with, 13% of companies said managing their website is their #1 marketing challenge. So when we're thinking about marketing challenges, things that stand in the way of us doing a great job marketing ourselves, for 13% of people to say that managing their website is the #1 challenge is a staggering number to me, because there are such easy platforms out there to do it. And when you're thinking about designing a new site or improving the one you have, making sure that you're using an easy-to-use content management system absolutely needs to be one of your #1 priorities. The software it is built on is absolutely critical. because it's going to affect how easy it is for you to keep a website up to date. If it's not easy, you're going to get really frustrated, and it's going to be the last thing on your priority list. As humans, we tend to just ignore the things that we don't like to do, or we tend to put them on the bottom of our to-do list. And that's a dangerous thing when we know how important your website is and the overall operation of your business. It's your face to the world. But you absolutely have to keep that website fresh and up to date if you're going to succeed. That also includes making sure that you have easy SEO management built into your website. We talk to people a little bit about search engine. Well, we talk to people a lot about search engine optimization. It's one of the big things that we do. But when we're talking about it, we talk about kind of two parts of search engine optimization. There's on-site, and that's everything that happens on your website. And there's off-site, and that's link building and other people, interacting with you and so forth. That's a little harder to control. But on-site, you should have clear control over and tools built into your content management system to be able to do easy SEO management updates and so forth. To make sure you're optimizing for keywords, you're building content around those keywords, you're publishing regular blogs around keywords, and doing that effectively with good management tools. The other tip number 5 here is to avoid proprietary content management systems. There are some that offer, superior tools for your industry, and they can make that claim, and you can evaluate those to see if they actually are superior. But as a general rule, proprietary content management systems, more than anything, are developed because people want to hold you hostage as a customer. That's not a blanket statement. You've got to analyze them one by one. But in the 15 years I've been in internet marketing, I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've spoken to that were on a proprietary content management system, wanted to leave, but were kind of held hostage to that system. They'd have to design an entire new website to get away from it. And they didn't necessarily want to do that after they already spent so much money to have that one developed in the first place. So it's just a little thing you got to keep an eye on, but it can mean a big deal. And if you are going onto a proprietary content management system because it's better designed for your needs or whatever, just make sure you understand, what does an exit look like? Like, if I want to get off, I want to change, what does that look like? How's that going to work? And make sure that that tool actually is better than the other options that are available to you. Tip 6 there is considering using WordPress. It's the most widely known and widely used CMS. And what I tell people and why that's important is if you hire a web developer and they go out and get hit by a bus, or they do something that's not fair, not good business, and you need to split off and do your own thing, if you're on WordPress, pretty much any web developer who's out there is at least aware of it if they don't know how to use it pretty well. Because it's the most widely known and widely used, everybody out there has had some level of experience with it, and you won't have any trouble finding a new web developer who can help you with that platform. If you're on a little known or rarely used one, having someone who knows how to use it can be really challenging. I mean, we've had customers come over to us in years past that had kind of lesser known, lesser used, less popular content management systems, and just the learning curve to figure out how is the thing coded in the first place is definitely a challenge, and if it just leads to bigger costs for the customer in the long run. So using something that you know works well and a lot of people know how to use it can be really beneficial for you in the long run. I'm not a WordPress salesperson. They've got no skin in that game, but it is a great tool to definitely consider using. But there are other great tools out there as well. So definitely evaluate what's best for you in the situation that you're in. Next thing we want to talk about, and this is something that's absolutely critical and something that we see very few people succeeding in doing well, but that's to use calls to action throughout your website. I just showed you that sidebar a minute ago, and I talked about the importance of calls to action in that sidebar, but also throughout other parts of the website. But you always want to know what my desired next step from this page is. You always want to know, where do I want someone to go from here? And don't just assume it's book now, right? I mean, book now is a pretty default. I want them to take that book now step. Well, that's great, right? We all want them to take that book now step. But if they're on your home page, book now is probably not the most logical next step for them, right? If this is their first time on your website, they're not going to go to your home page and be so wowed by it that they're immediately going to click book now. I'm not saying book now shouldn't be there. It should be, because you've got repeat customers that are coming back. They already know what room they want or what property they want to book, and they just want that book now or whatever button that is for you that kind of connects. But But think about other things. Think about the 5 stages of the travel cycle I talked about: the dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. And if someone's in that dreaming or planning phase, what information, what calls to action should we put in front of them that's going to help them move through that planning stage? It's going to add value to them throughout that process, so when they get to the booking stage and they're ready to actually make a booking, that we've earned their business by adding value to them over a period of time. So that dives a little deeper into having kind of maybe a longer thought session, maybe a whiteboard session, sit down with a glass of wine and really ponder on that one. But think about your user and what information is valuable to them at different parts of their journey as they move through your website, and then use calls to action to serve that information up. We have a blog post just this morning, went viral on Facebook for one of our customers. So as soon as we saw it go viral, our immediate action is to go to that blog post and invest more design time into redesigning calls to action throughout the post to get that out there. We don't do that in every single blog post because it's very time consuming, and if a blog post doesn't go viral, there's not an ROI to it. But when a blog post goes viral, which happens on a semi-regularly basis when you're writing as much content as we write for our customers, you have to have an action plan and say, okay, when this blog post goes viral, what are our next steps we're going to take? And it really comes down to putting calls to action in that content so that you can get that out there. I don't have any screenshots for you to show you because it literally just happened this morning. But on past webinars, we've shared some screenshots and ideas of how we've done that in the past. So you can always check out our YouTube channel to see some of those things. Or send me an email. I'd be happy to connect with you on that as well. I don't have a screenshot for you there. It'd be a great plug there, but a great thing to look at. But as we kind of dive into that, let's look at what calls to action we're using here. So you got this beautiful hero image at the top that takes the full screen. It draws me in, right? I mean, I'm absolutely ready to go to this destination, take my wife, do that whole champagne thing, and watch the sunset over the mountains. I can't. Short of that pool I just showed you a minute ago, I can't really imagine anything I'd rather be doing right now. Or teaching this webinar. I mean, I'm pretty excited about this as well. So this is probably third on that list right after those chairs in that pool. But what we're looking at here is the calls to action that our Finesse Collection has used. And you'll see different ones throughout the website if you move. But inquire now, big, obvious in that navigation menu. It's on every page. Great, love that. But we're on one of the hotels that they market. So now we've got inquire now again. We've got the opportunity to favorite this hotel, so to be able to save our favorites. That's a great tool to have when you've got 50 hotels or 50 properties or however you're marketing yourself, or maybe favorite a room if you've got a lot of rooms and let people book those individually. And they've also got this call to action on our added finesse. So you're going to book Qatar's 1920 safari camp and take this amazing trip to Kenya, but why should you book through our Finesse Collection? Well, they're letting you know right there. They're using that call to action. Say booking with us is different than booking with someone else because we have our added finesse. If you book with us, you're going to get a starlit bush dinner and a Maasai dance. And Maasai is part of the Kenya culture. It's a tribe there. But really cool because it speaks to what's going on. It speaks to what's unique about booking this experience to our Finesse Collection. There's more calls to action throughout the content as you move down these pages. We don't have that. It's a screenshot again, but you'll also, on these experience, rooms and rates, getting there, and featured itineraries, those are tabs that you can click on and then look at different calls to action throughout there. And this varies based on property too. But here we also have social media calls to action. So if I'm getting pumped up, and a lot of people interact and talk about vacation on social media, it's a great place for me to brag about that vacation I took. Maybe I just booked safari camp. Maybe I want to brag to all my friends that I'm going to Kenya. I'm going to share that on Facebook. I'm going to share that on Twitter. So being able to have those calls to action there is a cool tool as well as you're moving through that. All right, the next thing we're going to touch on, and I'm probably a bit long-winded. I'm pretty excited about this topic, so I was trying to wrap up by 2:45, but we'll keep moving here, is to create a lead-generating website. And what this means is there are people literally on everyone on this call's website. If you have a website and you're doing a decent job marketing it, I guarantee you there's people on your website right now who are looking at your property or properties, your hotel, but they're not ready to make a booking decision yet. Typically, travelers view 3 to 5 websites when making a booking decision, and we're seeing recent data that has this number going up even higher. I believe it's probably higher than this. But 3 to 5 that are in serious consideration. And they're on those websites browsing it anonymously, and we have no idea who these people are. because they're not ready to book. They're not going to reach out. They're not going to call us. They're not going to do that because they're in the dreaming and planning phase. Back to those 5 stages of travel I talked about: dreaming and planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. They're not to booking yet. They're in dreaming and planning. And the question is, do you have anything on your website that's going to capture their attention and get them to convert as a lead? Get them to raise their hand, figuratively, and say, hey, I'm interested in taking a trip to Kenya. I'm interested in going to that camp and having that experience. Here's my name, phone number, email address, possibly a little bit more information. Get them to give you their information, capture their attention, so that you have the opportunity to start nurturing that relationship, building that relationship, and establishing know, like, and trust. So when they go from dreaming and planning into the booking stage, and they've viewed all these different websites, all these different properties, you're the only one who has continued to add value to them. You've converted them as a lead, you're continuing to add value, and you have a higher likelihood of booking that person because you've added value to them through their dreaming and planning phase, so they're more likely to book with you when they get to the booking stage. Big topic, we could teach an hour or more long webinar just on this, but that's kind of something to get your mind running a little bit. Hopefully I've kind of stirred some thoughts in you to get you questioning, what's that look like? How's that work? And we're going to dive in here, look at an example. Here's a pretty basic example. It's this Inquire Now form for our Finesse Collection. Pretty basic, pretty obvious to have an Inquire Now form. My challenge to you is to think about, besides an Inquire Now, what else might someone be interested in? Would they convert as a lead for, a free cup of coffee at the local coffee shop or whatever? Like, what could you add value? What could you give them that's added value that would give you the opportunity to start marketing to them, creating that lead and helping them move down that road? I was just talking to a vacation rental manager the other day, and he said, I've got to get some August last-minute bookings. He's like, I've got all this availability for August. I need to fill these last-minute bookings. That's a great opportunity to use last minute as a call to action to generate some leads. Being able to send an email out to your database about that and using your email marketing software to identify who in your database is interested in taking a last minute booking, absolutely critical. But you've got to have some lead generation strategies built into your website and built into your marketing to be able to capitalize on those opportunities. Here you'll see we've done that with our Finesse Collection by Get Your Travel Guide, which isn't live on their site yet. So if you go there, you won't quite see that yet. That's kind of one of the strategies coming down the road. But then the other 2 call to action areas, the Explore Tropical Rainforest, Escape to Experiences, Escape to August, and then the Inquire Now. So some calls to action for lead generation opportunities built in there, and something that will continue to evolve with them as they're working that direction. Awesome. Let's touch base on this one real quick. It says mobile friendly is not important, it's critical. I talked about Michael's story earlier and his traffic going from 10% mobile to 65% mobile over a 3-year period. But responsive design is absolutely a must. You need to be investing in custom tablet designs and custom handheld, like phone designs, mobile designs, if you're going to be doing a complete redesign and you have the budget to do that. If you're not, making sure that you're partnering with somebody that thinks about that. And as I talked about, designing for mobile first. It's easier to go from mobile bigger than it is to go from big and design and then let it go down to small. If you go to the Finesse Collection website, which I'll have a screenshot of here in just a minute, on your iPhone, you can see a little bit of information about how we designed for mobile within that one. And it's definitely one, if we had a larger budget, we could spend some more time there and make some things even better than they already are. But we allocated part of that budget specifically to that to make sure we had a great mobile experience. The third there, and we didn't do this on Finesse Collection, but is to consider ditching slideshows in favor of large images and faster load speed time. Load speed time is getting more and more important, and you've got to make sure that your images aren't so big size-wise, and you have so many of them that slows that user experience down. If someone's on a mobile network trying to load large images on your site, they're going to have a bad experience and they're going to bounce out. So you've really got to make sure you're thinking about those people when you're designing your overall website. Next one there kind of ties back straight into that one, but make sure you're sizing images appropriately from a file size perspective. We see a lot of people uploading large file sizes, 1 megabyte and larger images into a website, and it's really just because they don't know better. But make sure you're sizing images appropriately so they load quickly on a mobile device or a tablet that might be on a 3G network. Heaven forbid you're still on a 3G cell phone network. But there's a lot of it still out there. In Charleston, I'm bouncing between 3G and 4G all the time. I bet you are as well. And you've got to be thinking about that 3G user and what their experience is going to be like. And there's just kind of a quick screenshot of what that Finesse Collection looks like on a mobile device. You'll see the menu collapses, and it goes into what's called the hamburger button, or the little 3 lines you're probably seeing on other sites. It's called a hamburger because every time I see it, I want to eat a hamburger. No, it's actually not. I don't know. I mean, obviously it got that because of the 3 lines, but that's a bit of a stretch. Somebody must have been hungry that day that they coined that term. But it's all about making sure that your website kind of scales into that environment well, that you've thought about that, and everything kind of scales itself down to be good on mobile and good on tablet, and that your designer has designed where those breakpoints are going to be based on different mobile screen sizes. When we're really blowing out a full design site, we actually design for anywhere from 5 to 7 different widths. So we design 5 to 7 different designs for the same page, all based on different widths. So it's an incredibly time-consuming experience, but you end up with a great product if you have the budget to do that. If your budget's a little more limited, you can still get that done by just using some themes that have already kind of maybe paved that road a little bit. So still some great ways to get that done. Awesome. Well, that leads us, as I've kind of ran through here and probably shared way too many words, but that leads us to that question of, do you have a killer website? Hopefully today, after our time together, you've got a feeling for what makes up a killer website. Maybe you love the ideas, you agree with a lot of them, it's got you thinking about some things, and you're ready to take some next steps. One of the things we always want to do, and one of our commitments, because we work so hard to educate the industries in which we do, and we travel a lot and speak a lot, is always helping people take the next steps. One of the things I hate when I'm going to presentations or conferences, I get super fired up. I hear the speaker, but at the end of it, I'm like, wow, kind of overwhelmed, and I have no idea what to do next. We don't want you to have that experience anytime you're interacting with us. So as a service to the industry, we have a lot of free things that we give away. But if you're in that place, you say, wow, I'm fired up, I'm excited about this, but I really don't know what to do next. We have a free 21-point website inspection that one of the members of our team will go through your website, do a 21-point website inspection, and then connect with you, email that to you, or connect with you on a quick call, go over those 21 points, share any thoughts, share any feedback, answer any questions, and try to help you get going down the right road. They'll give you some language, some questions you could ask your web developer, some slight tweaks you might be able to contact them to make. Totally free, just as a way to kind of help you take those next steps, because we believe if all of our websites get a little bit better, that it will help all of us do a better job of marketing ourselves. It will help us attract more travelers. Travelers will have a better experience, and in the end, they'll travel more. And at the end of the day, that's what we want, is people traveling more, spending more of their discretionary earned income in the properties that we get the chance to work with. So I encourage you to take advantage of that next step if you're kind of scratching your head and wanting to take that next step. You'll get an email from me afterwards with an invitation and a form you can fill out if that's something you're interested in doing. Awesome. Well, with that, we're going to dive in. We're going to answer some questions and answers. Again, I will email a copy of this recording out. Also make the slides and myself available. My email and phone number both there on the screen for you. If you have any questions, be happy to connect with you. But give me a second to take a quick drink and read through a few of these questions in the chat panel, and we'll dive in. If you have a question, that would be a great time to put it in the chat panel, and I will do my best to get that question answered. So. Awesome. A question here from Fred. What is the best way to stay on top of the WordPress software updates? Great question, Fred. Actually just had that conversation with a customer, prospective customer out in Colorado this morning. But there are some plugins that you can use to do that. Our senior developer does all that for our customers. I can't remember one of the plugins he uses to do that. It kind of notifies you. Of course, you still need to approve those things. But there is a plugin. If you search, if you Google search WordPress update plugin, you'll find that it will help you be able to do that. I apologize for not remembering the name of it off the top of my head, but you can Google that. It will help you with that. But that's an important thing to do, because as plugins update themselves, as WordPress updates itself, as people more and more go try to attack WordPress, you got to keep it up to date to make sure you're keeping those loopholes closed and keeping people from hacking into your website. So great question, Fred. Appreciate you asking that. I wish I had more of a direct answer, but that's a good question there. Awesome. Question here from Neil. Do you recommend a hero slideshow on homepage? How many slides? Is this compatible with a responsive site? Awesome question, Neil. It absolutely is compatible with a responsive site. And the example we looked through today, our Finesse Collection, we use that hero slideshow on actually several different pages throughout the website. But that's also a responsive website. So you'll see that if you play with it a little bit and be able to use that. Slides, a little bit depends on what the content is and how many you really need to showcase it. They also have slides on their properties, the individual hotels or properties that they're marketing. So in that case, that's kind of a homepage for that hotel, for that property. So it needs to have some slides. Typically, we recommend 3 to 5. You get much more than that, and it just really starts making that page heavy to load. Because it has to load all of those slides every time it loads that page. Or maybe not every time, it might cache some of it, but that first time for sure that it loads that page has to load all those slides. So you just don't want to make your site too heavy, and that's where making sure your images are sized appropriately is going to be really important. If you have 5 1 megabyte images, that's a totally different thing than having 5 200 kilobyte images. Obviously, it's 5 times the size by having a megabyte versus a 200 kilobyte. So sizing your images appropriately will help you if you're going to have more slides. But keeping it to a minimum is important too. Question here. Hi, Matt. Tips on how to find a web designer who also really gets marketing and vice versa. In my experience, each tends to believe they get both sides of the task, and it's rarely true. How do I identify the best people to work with? Thanks. Great question, Kathleen. One way to do that is working with a larger team. It is rare to find one individual person who gets both sides of it and is realistic from a cost perspective. So working with a larger team, you're going to get more wisdom working on your project. So that's one way to do that. Staying away from the one-man band, we call them trunk slammers. 9 times out of 10, staying away from a one-man band is a good idea. There's very few one-man bands out there who are doing a great job for customers. And if they're selling, delivering, doing their own accounting, it just gets really hard for them to keep up. So that's one warning. I can't tell you how many times I've had friends and fellow entrepreneurs who have kind of tried that route of the trunk slammer to save a little money and end up paying for it in the long run. But the real way to discover that talent is to ask those types of questions. A lot of the things I've presented today, if you turn those into questions, that will give you an insight on whether or not somebody gets it. If you ask them about the role the blog plays and things like that, their responses to those questions will help you understand if they get it. So that's a great way to do it. Of course, we'd be happy to help you as well. You can just shoot me an email or a call, and I'd be happy to help and see if we're a good fit for you. But the real advice there is to just ask the right questions. You'd be amazed if you ask questions long enough, people will show you whether or not they have wisdom. And can really help you effectively. So great question, Kathleen. Appreciate that. Question here, how important is responsive web design? Responsive web design is, and I kind of touched on the mobile one, but it's absolutely critical. Google released the mobile Geddon, which had everybody scrambling and hasn't had a huge effect yet. But that was really implementing and mandating technology that was already 5 to 7, maybe longer than that, years old by saying, you have to have a mobile website. Well, most people had mobile websites for a long time. It didn't say you had to have a responsive website. Responsive technology at this point is probably 3 to 4 years old. So if you have a mobile site separate from your desktop site, you're already 3 to 4 years kind of behind the game. So definitely recommend having a responsive site, designing that, or redesigning a website into a responsive site. If you have a WordPress site now, it can be updated into a responsive site without completely redoing that. But making sure that whatever you're using, whatever web developer you're using, is well-versed in responsive design and knows how to design those different breakpoints and different monitor sizes and so forth. And then based on your budget, figuring out how in-depth do you want to go into that responsive design. Do you want to get real nitpicky about where those breaks are and how the images size themselves and things? Or do you need to use a theme or something that's already existing, kind of work within that to keep it within a reasonable budget? So absolutely critical, definitely something you need to be thinking about. And then your budget's going to dictate a little bit about how intense you can get from a responsive perspective. So great question. Appreciate that, Joe. If there's any other questions, we've got a few more minutes here. Happy to hang out and chat and answer those questions for you. Otherwise, thank you for attending today. And and keep your eye on your inbox for that 21-point website inspection. Be happy to get that out to you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.